This is For Advisors by Advisors. I'm your host, Evan J. Mayer. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about my history in the business. I thought it would be a good idea for you to understand, where I've been in this business. So as I'm asking questions or, interviewing people, you understand a little bit about my background and the direction of those questions. And, we're really excited. We have about 7 interviews lined up over the next few weeks. Got a few other people that I'm trying to get on the books for the interviews, and it's been great so far. So hopefully you guys are tuning in, enjoying them, and learning something. But a little background on myself. I started in the business in 2002. I first got my my 215 insurance license. So in the state of Florida, it's a life, health, and annuity license. And, you got to do a 40-hour course, and then you take a test. Fairly simple test, as most of for anybody that's done that test. The series tests are obviously a lot more difficult, the CFP and so on. The next test I took was the Series 7. Obviously a lot more difficult of a test, a lot harder to study. I call it a brain dump test. You just got to remember everything and then spill it back out on those answers. And then I was a licensed advisor. I left the business for a very short period of time, and then ended up getting a job with a small local Florida-based bank called Bank Atlantic. They're no longer in existence. They were bought by BB&T in 2012. I'll get back to that part of the story, but ended up getting my series license and ended up getting a job as a licensed personal banker, and was really focused on the investment side. About 11 months in, everybody that kind of knew me at the bank, great bank, by the way, great people, great. I mean, it was a phenomenal place to be. Learned and met a lot of great people that I'm still very friendly with today. The licensed banker role was kind of boring, and I was really good at the investment side. And I applied for one of their regional investment executives and got one of the positions. And back then, they only had investments were not a huge focus of the bank. Loans, deposits, and lending were kind of their bread and butter. And so they didn't have a lot of financial advisors. And matter of fact, they were just kind of restarting the program. And I ended up getting all of Broward County. I had 27 branches. Actually, at one point, the Miami-Dade and Palm Beach advisor had left. And so I had all 70 branches. Talk about a field day. I mean, we would get calls from managers saying, hey, we have a client here that's looking to invest money. It's a bank advisor's dream, okay? Most bank advisors, bank programs, get 1 to 3 branches, or they work in the private wealth division and they only work with $1 million plus clients or $5 million plus clients. And, most of those are recruitment people and from outside. Some are grown and stayed in the bank for 20, 30 years and kind of built their book of business, but some are brought in from the outside. But long story short, this bank didn't have any of that stuff. So back then, fixed annuities were paying 5, 6, 7, 8%, really, really good yields. And somebody said, look, you can get into investments, start doing mutual funds, but, start with fixed annuities and kind of work your way into mutual funds, which is what I did. And then eventually I'm like, I really want to manage money. And so I ended up getting my Series 66. For those that, have, hopefully, most of you have that at this point. If you don't have that, it's your 65 and your 63 combined, allows you to do business in outside states, which is your 63, and your 65 is your advisory license. So 66 covers all of that. Took that test. That test was a lot harder than the Series 7. Passed that. And then even, briefly after that, was thinking about maybe getting into management and got my Series 24. So, and studied for that. And that was actually harder than the 66. So I guess a transition in toughness. But decided, one day, like, what am I doing? All these fixed annuities, these mutual funds, I'm acting as a broker, and I didn't want to be a broker. Matter of fact, when a client today calls me broker, and none of them do that, are my clients now, but like occasionally I'll get, a prospect and, and they'll say, I just left my broker and, I'm looking for a new broker. And I'm like, I'm not a broker. But back then I was, by all accounts I was. And somebody said, if you really want to grow a practice, you got to start doing fee-based management. So I started doing fee-based management, really studying it, got my licenses, and started basically from scratch. I decided, I wasn't going to work my existing book because a lot of clients that had bought fixed annuities back then, were clients that were CD clients. They were coming in for a CD and wanted something guaranteed, maybe not FDIC guaranteed, but wanted something safe and wanted a higher rate than they could get in the bank, and that's kind of where my bread and butter was. And then I obviously went into management of assets, and back then I was doing more mutual fund wraps and mutual fund management, because to me, like, the concept of being, I used to use this analogy that I was the general manager working with different coaches on different staffs. The equities are the offensive coaches, and the defensive coaches are the bond managers. And I built a little bit of a practice doing that. And then, I built about 30 million in fee-based business. And then all of a sudden, one morning, I got a phone call, and it was from a friend. And my boss didn't even know yet. I believe I called him, and he's like, well, let me check that out. And it was really early in the morning. It was like 6:30 a.m. And BB&T had bought Bank Atlantic. And everybody at Bank Atlantic was kind of, torn. Like, and it doesn't matter. There's, BB&T is a great bank, I'm sure. But, back then, nobody, when you got bought out, you liked your bank. You didn't want to get bought out by somebody else. You wanted to do the buying per se. And I remember clearly, and this manager is great, and I won't mention names, but he's now at a different bank, and he saved my career by a lot. But there's probably 10 people that I can count on that like guided me in making a decision, or probably 50 that were somewhat influential, but 10 that were like, and this is one of them. And he said to me, look, and at the time, BB&T had two sides. They had Scott and Stringfellow, which was $1 million plus, or actually, excuse me, 250,000 and plus. And then the bank channel, which was 250 and below. And I was trying to swim upstream, not downstream. And I remember I was sitting in a meeting with him, and he said, I'm going to be your boss, and I want you to stay, but you probably shouldn't, based on what you told me your future was. And I couldn't have been more thankful for that guy. And would stand up, if anybody ever calls me about him, I give glowing reviews, because that was a pivotal moment. And after that moment, I started looking and ended up joining SunTrust, which is now no longer bought. And funny enough, it was bought by BB&T. And when I started at SunTrust, I actually brought over, about $15-20 million of assets when I first started. So I was small. And, I was just building, I was just kind of understanding manage money. And I said, I'm not knowledgeable enough. I want to get some certifications. We actually ended up starting this at our prior firm, but we ended up getting our CWS, which is Certified Wealth Strategist designation. I ended up going and getting my CRPC with the College Financial Planning, which is the Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor designation. And then the CMFC ended up getting too, because that was an easy test. Why not get some extra credentials? And trying to learn the game and really learn investment management to the best of my ability. And really started to grow and started using UMAs and really focused on that. But I said, I got to focus on financial planning, not just investment management. Like, planning is key, because if I don't know what's going on with somebody, how am I supposed to invest their money properly? And I said, I need to focus on financial planning. And I dove deep into financial planning, started my CFP license, ended up getting my CFP designation. That's a really, really hard test, because though I passed pretty easy on my first, they don't tell you how much you passed by. I don't think they did tell me how much I passed by. But it was more about implementation than brain dump. So I did the CFP and really, really got focused on financial planning. Became the #1 financial planner in my firm as far as the way they counted on that, which was full done financial plans. Didn't do any sugarcoat financial plans. There was a lot of advisors that actually did that. They would get some extra bogeys and bonuses and things like that. I really adapted a financial planning process. Actually got my bankers completely involved in it. They would come and join me in the meetings. They would set the appointments up. They would set the second appointment up. We had a 5-step planning process, which I've actually developed that I brought here. SunTrust had their own. They kind of created it. They said mine was similar to theirs, and so I couldn't put proprietary. Though I was pretty adamant that that was not being done at the time. So had a great time doing that. And as I started to do that and really used holistic approaches with clients and managing assets, my assets grew significantly. So, I was starting to bring in 25 to 30 million a year. That might not be significant to some. It might be somebody's entire career book of business for many advisors that I know. So, back then it was a great thing. I was building my book of business, my practice. We got to a really good number that I thought, once you pass those hurdles, you hit 50, you hit 100, you hit 150, you hit 200. Those hurdles are such great hurdles. And then it's no longer more on the 50s. Then you start worrying about the hundreds and getting to 3 and 4 and 5 and so on. But we built a nice book of business at the time for 7 years, bringing 20 million over. I think I was sitting on 180 million. And I was really liking the bank and liking where I was headed. I was contemplating, do I, back, and at SunTrust, you'd have 1 to 3 or 4 or 5 branches. If you were a good advisor, you could maybe get a 5. If you were, or 3 to 5. If you were not, you get 1. If you could produce, you could produce, and managers took good care of you. And, there was significantly great managers that I had there, those top 10 that I named that are influential. 2 of them were managers. One has passed away. He was a $1 million producer that became a manager. Not many of those that are legit. They always say they produce, but this guy was a producer. And just had a great experience. And one day BB&T, had bought SunTrust out of the blue. And, that was a pivotal moment for me because I remember what I had gone through, and I was scared. I was absolutely scared out of my mind that I was going to have to leave because I was comfortable, but at the same time, I was getting bogged down by some politics in banking. For those of you that are at wirehouses or independent, there is a lot of politics. There's you're going to be on conference calls. You're going to be on conference calls on things that don't matter to you. You're going to probably spend somewhere between 5 to 10 hours of your week where you should be with clients doing things that are technically beneficial to the bank and to partnerships. So I get it on the bank channel, but as an advisor, as your business grows, you do get to a point where you go, do I want to spend that much time doing that stuff? And you do have the option of going up to the private wealth division, and maybe you only have to deal with 2 or 5 hours of that stuff. Not as much per week, but it was a situation where I was done. I was getting enough referrals for my existing book of business. And so I was basically, and by all accounts, I was excited, but I knew I had to move. And, so we made a decision, me and my team, and we started to scour, different avenues. Where would we want to go? And I looked at the wirehouses, and I looked at the independent space, and I looked at, all the different places. And, the independent space, you don't get big, huge checks. You can, depending upon which independent, places you go. But, I was getting offers of millions of dollars. Wirehouses were offering significant amounts of money. 2, 3, 400% of your trailing 12 of your revenue, which is a significant amount of money to decline. And I really thought about my clients and my freedom and the ability to manage the way I want to manage. I want to charge what I want to charge clients. If I want to charge them less, I'm going to do so. If I want to do a plan and I want to manage money and this much in stocks and this much in bonds, as long as there's a justifiable reason, I can do so. And I wanted to partner with a firm that I felt really good about, which I eventually ended up doing, and ended up going independent. And we've been independent now for 3 years. We've basically doubled our book of business. We became basically fee-only advisors at this point. I rarely do many annuities at all. I'll do some 1035 exchanges once or twice a year when I run into a case where there's a huge taxable situation and it might be better to roll that out. But our practice is holistic financial planning and portfolio management, fee portfolio management. And I would say I'm fee only, other than the fact that again, we have those occasional insurance policies that we'll do for clients, or the occasional 1035 or the 529 plans that we'll do. But we've really converted the practice. We've changed it throughout the course of time. We see all clients quarterly or semi-annually, most quarterly. Semi-annual for those that really don't need us quarterly. Younger clients that are not married yet, they or don't have a plan yet, or some clients that are elderly and financially fine and don't need a tremendous amount of planning. You want to do planning for every client, obviously. You want to add that benefit to them, and so that's my history. We've done everything. I've been everywhere. I've done everything. I've seen it. There's always more to learn, though. That's what I'm trying to say. I've been independent for 3 years. I'm young. I'm in my early 40s. So I got a long way to go. Birthday's actually in a few days here. So, but that's my history. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. Like I said on my introduction podcast, I came from, starting with nothing. I didn't have, didn't inherit a parent's book of business or something along those lines. People that do that, that's great. Some of the kids are better than the parents are. I didn't have that. I kind of had to start and cut my teeth, and I did it in the bank channel. And some people do it in the wirehouse channel and, love it in the wirehouse and still do. And, I will tell you, I have friends that were with me in the bank channel. And, for me, the bank channel was the competitiveness of it. I loved, right? Like watching the leaderboard and seeing if I could get better, if I could outgrow the others. And once I got to the top of that leaderboard, it was, it was kind of, then I was looking at other areas that I could beat. And, for me, like, the extra motivation of what you want to do, you want to be great at it. Right. So that's my experience. If you have any questions, or, if there's any part of your experience that's somewhat interesting or different, love to hear it. I know not all bank channels are equal. They're all different. And they're where I came up from, they weren't like what they are today. I think today, if you want to get a branch in most banks, you got to join a team, and they're really promoting the teams. I mean, all the big firms are. Merrill Lynch is, hugely promoting teams, things along those lines. So, I think most firms are like, if you're not on a team, we don't want you. So it's getting to that aspect, and for good reason. The stickier they can keep, clients, the better. And, that obviously all firms want to keep assets, but all good financial advisors, clients are going to tend to migrate over with good financial advisors. And as I've said many times, there are great financial advisors at every firm, and there are bad financial advisors at every firm. We've seen them. The good ones know the bad ones. The bad ones know the good ones. Don't know they're good always. So it's interesting that way. Anyway, if you're not already, please follow us on YouTube. You can pick us up on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere your podcasts are, and you can email me at info@fortunawealth.com. Again, info@fortunawealth.com. And be happy to answer any questions, any feedback. You can also follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn, and hope you're enjoying the podcast start. We're going to start our row of interviews. So be on the lookout, and take care.